on, guys? Is it cold in here? Is it feeling a little bit chilly? What's today? Frost Mage Day. So we're counting down to the last 10 of our guides, guys, of the basic guides. Last 11, I should say. Our druid friends have 2. And that means we're going to start covering a little bit of the non-PvE focused specs, the ones that come towards the end. That includes Subtlety, Rogue, etc. So what are we kicking off with in that sort of area? It's going to be the Frost Mage, guys. We're getting Frosty, and we're going to be looking at it exactly how it performs in PvE. The answer straight up, not great. It's just not a great PvE tree. It's very PvP-centric, in my opinion. A lot of defensive cooldowns as opposed to DPS cooldowns. But you guys want it, so that's why I'm doing it for you. So this is Frost Mage Day. So this is X-Preach. You've seen him in the Arcane, and you've seen him in the Fire Mage videos. He's my little goblin, and he's joined by a little friend, our little water elemental. We're going to get to that shortly. We're going to use the usual story, talent, specs, glyphs, the whole Monty, and then I'm going to do a heroic demonstration for you just to show you exactly how Frost is performing at the moment. Let's get into it. As I said, X-Preach. Gear level not too bad, 343. He's picked up quite a bit of gear as we've been doing that. That is an inevitable result of me running various heroics and doing guides for you. So I eventually pick up some bits and bobs of gear. So nothing wrong with that at all. So, what have we got? We've got some Fire Lord's gloves. Our main stat, as always, intellect. Intellect, intellect, intellect. We need more intellect. Yummy, yummy, yummy intellect. Love it. We need more intellect, more spell power, more mana, more spells cast. Everything we cast hits that little bit harder. Intellect all the time. We obviously can't reforge for intellect, as we said in the past. Can't reforge for the intellect. So when we come to our gemming, we want to get as much intellect as possible. Weigh up your set bonuses. If I was to gem pure intellect, or if I was to gem intellect and maybe a different off-piece gem, would I get more intellect that way? That's how you decide. In general, if it's not a 20 int bonus, 20 intellect, you aren't going to gem a mixed gem, such as intellect haste or anything like that. You're going to put in pure intellect. Get your intellect up. So stat priorities, the usual story, spell hit. Get your hit up. You need to be able to hit the mobs or it doesn't work. Even in basic gear like I'm wearing, guys, you're going to struggle to reach that hit cap. You're looking for 17%. When you come down to your spell and look for hit chance, you're looking for 17%. I've managed to get nearly 16%. I'm still 1% off. Hit chance for a mage is such a pain in the backside to get. I cannot express enough. But still, once you get there, it's happy days and just keep it floating around there. Once you actually reach that 17%, you're just going to be laughing. But you're certainly not going to gem for hits. Don't do that. Not worth it at all. The closer there seems to be a mechanic working at Blizzard at the moment. The closer you get to the hit cap, the less. Yes, obviously, the less chance you have to miss, but it seems to be multiplicative, so you'll very rarely miss. Getting 17% is the win, 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 win. What comes next? Well, we're looking for haste, more than primarily. We're looking for our haste, guys. Get our haste up as much as humanly possible. When it comes to your reforging, leave your crit where it is. We need a lot of crits, and we're going to crit quite a lot naturally. Mastery isn't too great for Frost at the moment, but it is close enough to crit to maybe have a little think about it. For me, get rid of your mastery and reforge that as priority. So you can see on the gloves, I've taken the mastery off, I've put some hits on there. I've enchanted those for haste because it's a cheap enchant. We don't want to go over the board on basic items. Again, it's a nice example here where we've looked at our bonus. It was 10 mastery, not bothered. We've gone pure intellect in there and reforged that mastery down to hit. Really, really nice. So that's what we're doing, guys. He's still got his green legs. One day we will replace those legs. I absolutely promise you we will replace those legs. He's a tailor, so he's managed to get a cheap thread on there. Really good, working all the way down. So that's your basic gearing. I've just noticed that trinket, Gale of Shadows. I have the witching one. Ooh. Now, the only reason I'm looking at that, guys, is be wary of trinkets that proc off dots. Your healing and damage periodic spells grant 15 spell power each time they heal or deal damage. We don't have any periodic damage as a Frost Mage, so that's a little bit of a decision to make there. Do I keep 100 hit rating? Because that is a lot. I'll pick up the extra intellect and pick up a haste bonus. I'm going to switch it for now. Why not? Let's be cheeky. Let's be cheeky. I know I shouldn't, but I will. I'm going to do it. Why not? Let's see if we suffer for that later in the day. Let's go into talents. Now, you won't find a great deal about PvE Frost, guys. You're just not going to find a great deal of it because nobody plays it. Simple as. It just does not perform anywhere near as good as Arcane and nowhere near as close as Fire. Arcane, very, very far ahead at the moment compared to Fire, especially in big single target fights. So you're not going to find a lot of Frost. So let me work you through what I think currently is the best PvE talent spec for the Frosty Mage. Any questions or anything or changes you think if you prefer, go ahead and stick them in the comments, no problem at all. So first of all, we pick up Early Frost. Early Frost. We reduce the cast time of your Frostbolt spell by half a second. Yum, yum, yum. This effect becomes inactive for 15 seconds after use, and then it'll fire up again, but it's still good. Piercing Ice, a flat 3% crit. Good. See the white devalues crit on your gear. You can start to understand that a little bit. Shatter, very important you pick this up. Multiplies the critical strike chance of all your spells against thrown targets by 3. Another 3% crit. And increase the damage done by a frostbolt against thrown targets by 20%. So when we get that, what we're going to look at is something called the Shatter combo. We're going to be trying to pull that off very, very nicely. Shatter combo is when things are frozen and we time our frostbolts to line up with that, so we get that big 20% damage. We can do that in PvE because we have a little shady thing with our water elemental. We're going to talk about that shortly. Down, it's ice flows. Reduce the cooldown of our major cooldowns, especially Icy Veins, which is our big haste cooldown. Haste is yummy. So Icy Veins is going to give us a big load of haste, and that's going to reduce the cooldown. And it also reduces the cooldown of Cold Snap. Cold Snap resets all your cooldowns, so we can do another Icy Veins. Yum, yum, yum. It works for Ice Block as well, but if you get into double Ice Block, you're probably going to die anyway. So this isn't PvP. Permafrost. Your chill effects reduce the target speed by an additional 10%. Nah, not too bothered about that in PvE unless we're kiting. Nah. But addition, whenever you deal spell damage, your water elemental is going to be healed 15% of the amount of the damage dealt. That's really important. You need to keep your water elemental alive, because when Warty dies, our little Waterelli, we'll call him Water, if he dies, you're in shit out of luck on your DPS completely. Frost is bad enough as it is. We don't want to lose our pet to any reason. Pick up your old Permafrost. Icy Veins, our first major DPS cooldown, hastens your spellcasting, increasing the spellcast speed by 20% and reduce the pushback suffered from damaging a text while casting by 100%. So use it in two ways. One, a big DPS cooldown, or if you know there's going to be some sort of major incoming damage that's going to stop your spellcasting and interrupt it, go ahead and use the Icy Veins to counter that. If you've got a paladin or a shaman in there who's giving you that sort of tranquil mind, I think it's called now, or concentration aura, you should be okay. Enduring Winter. Oh, I've skipped one. Oh, I did. Loser Preach. Fingers of Frost. Yummy. We get a lot of procs of Frost. We get loads of procs. And procs are quite fun. I actually really enjoy Frost. I wish it did more damage. It's more interesting for me than Fire and Arcane. Certainly more than Arcane. Frost is definitely one of the most... I'm going to go out and say, I'm going to go out on a limb. Frost is the most fun spec to play. It just doesn't perform in the damage. Gives your offensive chill effects a 20% chance to grant you the Fingers of Frost. Don't you feel? Doesn't that sound good? Fingers of Frost. When do you cause your next Ice Lance or Deep Freeze spell to act as if your target was frozen? Even if it isn't. That's the important bit. So we're going to get those damage buff. And increases your Ice Lance damage by 25%. Fingers of Frost can accumulate up to 2 charges and last 15 seconds. So what does that mean for us? Let's say we're fighting a boss and Fingers of Frost procs. This means we can use our Deep Freeze. Now remember how Deep Freeze works. Shall I bring it up for you real swift like? Deep Freeze, let's read it. Stuns the target for 5 seconds, only usable on frozen targets. That's where our Fingers of Frost comes in. Deals huge damage to targets that are permanently immune to stuns, which is bosses. So a great little PvE tip there. When you get your Fingers of Frost, go ahead and use Deep Freeze on the boss. You're going to get a big fatty damage bonus. If not, you're going to use your Frost Firebolt or your Ice Lance. Either way, they're going to have a nice big fat crit chance. And your Ice Lance gets a big damage buff, so your Ice Lance isn't totally garbage in PvE. And then we go into Improved Freeze. This is really good. Gives your Water Elemental's Freeze spell a 100% chance to grant 2 Fingers of Frost. This is where we need a little macro, guys. I'm going to go ahead and throw this in. If you're always switching specs as a mage, you'll tend to find that binding pet spells is a waste of a binding. So I did as I made a little macro right here. Oh, there it is, Pet Freeze. It's just called Cast Freeze, because the spell on your Elemental is called Freeze. It's just called Cast Freeze. I have it on the same sort of binding as Flame Strike, because they work very similar. Watch. Same binding. See, you still have to target it, and then your pet's going to go ahead and freeze it. And there you go. You proc your Fingers of Frost. Oh, yeah. Really good. And you get 46k deep freezes off that. So that's why you take Improved Freeze. 100% chance of that to happen. So we want to be keeping that on cooldown all the time to proc that Fingers of Frost. Really good. Down to Enduring Winter. Reduce the mana cost of your spells. Frost has some mana issues sometimes. It can be a little bit frustrating in Heroics because there's not much time to drink usually. But you can run into some mana issues. And we've got various talents that are going to ease that off, including this one. Reduce the mana cost of your spells by 10%. In addition, your Frostbolt spell has a 100% chance to grant up to 10 party or raid members mana regen. So that's that replenishment buff. We're going to be giving that, but mainly we want it to reduce our mana cost itself. Cold Snap, as I said before, finishes all the cooldowns and all frost spells. Good. Brain Freeze, this is good. Another proc, so we get 2 procs. Your spells no longer trigger arcane missiles. Instead, your frost damage spells with a chilling effect have a 15% chance to cause your next Fireball or Frost Firebolt spell to be instant cast and cost no mana. When Frost Firebolt is instant, it can benefit from Fingers of Frost. There you go. So you get that big fat crit bonus. And why do we use Frost Firebolt over Firebolt? Because we've buffed our frost spells. Remember, Frost Firebolt benefits from both any talents that buff fire and Frost. Okay, it benefits from both of them. It mixes them together. So if you have talents that buff Frost Bolts and talents that buff Fire Bolts, Frost Fireball gets both of those mixed together. So as we're going down the Frost tree, we're going to get rid of Fireball because we've not buffed Fireball very much. We're going to be using Frost Fireball instead. Ice Barrier, we have to pick this up. It's not too bad in PvE to keep yourself alive, but again, it is a PvP talent essentially. It stops spellcasting being delayed. That's more of a PvP thing if you're taking damage. It's a great little thing. I mean, it absorbs loads of damage. Believe me, it can keep you alive for a long-ass time. But it's not too great for PvE. And this is Preach's house, where we always do the PvE. So that you have to pick it up to get down to Deep Freeze. We also pick up Frostfire Orb. Your Frostfire Orb also gains a chill effect, slowing targets damaged by the Frostfire Orb by 40% in 4 seconds. In addition, reduces the speed of slow targets of your Frostfire Bolt's chill effect by an additional 20%. So it's a nice slow. It's going to modify our Frostfire Orb. It's still going to do the same damage, but it's going to slow them. Definitely helps if mobs are all spreading around, doing a little touch more damage. It is an optional thing, really. It doesn't gain damage. I mean, if you want to move into something else, but there's nothing major. You can freeze people with Cone of Cold. Piercing Chill applies the chill effect to an additional need by target. It's not too bad. Might be better sometimes, but I generally don't think so. I like to get this slow all the time because tanks prefer it when the mobs are slow. Simple as. Deep Freeze. Okay, this is our endpoint talent. It's really good, as I've just demonstrated there. You can crit for up to 50k on mobs that are immune to stun, which is our bosses. So for PvE, it's essential, guys. Got to pick up your Deep Freeze. Really good. Remember to use it all the time if mobs can't be frozen. Or if there's a spell cast going on, your counter spell is on cooldown. Nobody else is interrupting. Go ahead and Deep Freeze, and why not? Then we move over into the other trees, guys. I've got a couple of choices here, but essentially these are the primary ones you want to be getting. Burning Soul, reduce the cast time lost from taking damage attacks by 70%. Always nice to have. There's always various damage going on. We generally don't always have Ice Barrier up, so if you want to go ahead and pick that up, I recommend it just so it's there passively, and then mixed with a concentration or etc. You're going to have 100% no loss of casting time. Really good. Master of Elements, your spell criticals refund 30% of their base mana. That's important. We're critting all the time, and as I said, Frost does run into mana issues. This is going to keep giving you mana back. Netherwind Presence, a flat 3% spell haste. Haste is yum yum yum, so we need that. And then finally we go into Arcane Concentration to gain our Clear Cast. Gives you a 6% chance of entering a clear casting state after any damaging spell hits the target. Makes the spell free. Again, easing up that mana issue that Frost does run into. What glyphs have we chosen? Well, this is what I've chosen. Your prime glyphs are your major ones. Don't worry about your mages and your minors. They're not too important. These are the ones you want to get. You want to get your Frostbolt for an extra 5% crit on Frostbolt. That's pretty good, isn't it? 5% crit. Glyph of Ice Lance, increase the damage of your Ice Lance by 5%. Remember, we're going to use that with that Fingers of Frost. So you need that Ice Lance buff because we're going to be using it all the damn time. So it's going to be hitting really hard. And also the Glyph of Deep Freeze, great for bosses. If you want to pick up Molten Armor, I think it's a bit of a waste in comparison to a 20% additional damage on your Deep Freeze when you're DPSing a boss. I personally think that's a far better glyph to pick up, alright guys? Like I said, there's some variation in Frost. It's not been very focused on by the sort of number crunching guys, but for me, this is where Frost is going to perform at its best. Okay guys, so we've got one macro for you there. The rest of it is dead easy. Our essential DPS is Frost Bolts, like this. We're going to be using our Pet Freeze to keep getting that Fingers of Frost. We're going to be Deep Freezing bosses. Otherwise, we're going to be Ice Lancing, which is going to give us a nice big bonus. Our major DPS cooldown there is our Brain Freeze, and we're going to use that on Frostfire Bolt mainly. And it's going to be just continuing this sort of DPS rotation of Frostbolt in between. Icy Veins are big cooldown. Really nice. Get that Fingers of Frost. Ooh, 26k. See, we get a lot of crits. Really nice. Alright guys, so I'm going to jump in Heroic now and show you how this works. Rock and roll.